Hello, everyone. Welcome to our very first Speaking with the Village. It's Josh here, coming live from both Facebook and YouTube. I'm here to talk to you about some of the issues in foster care and some of the topics that we see perpetuated in a lot of the forums and community organizations talking about foster care. So to start off, our first topic is experiences and advantages of foster parenting. We wanted to start off here because it is Foster Care Month. So happy Foster Care Month to everyone out there. This is the time that we celebrate those who support our foster care kiddos, those in the foster care system, and then we also identify the needs that we have in the foster care system. And there's one subject that fits in both those categories, and that's the need for foster parents. We are here to celebrate our foster parents, but we're also here to say we need you as a foster parent. We need those supportive, safe, and stable adults in our kiddos' lives to make them successful. So to start us off, I have Miss Sherry. She's joining us. She is I want to say former foster parent, but really once you're a foster parent, I think you're always a foster parent. There's never a former. You always carry those things with you. You always have that in your heart. So I want to say welcome to Sherry. She's joining us, and let's just start it right off. So Miss Sherry, what started your foster care journey or journey into fostering?
My journey into foster care began in probably a more interesting way than other people did. I was fostered from the time I was about 11, 10 in foster care. And then when I fostered out at 18, I had the opportunity to foster my siblings because there was a need. We were at the time wards of the state of California, me and my two sisters, and Washington would never take us on. And so we had lived with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and we could either stay with her or go back to California. Well, when she got ill, we foster cared out. My siblings were in a placement and they had to stay where they were at or they would be sent back. When I turned 18, there was a need that arose from one sibling and I didn't want her back in California. We didn't have any family members there. It had been years since we had been in San Diego and there were no connections that were active. And so I said I would take my sister on when I was 18. And then after that, another sibling came and needed assistance. And then another sibling came and needed assistance. And so that's how I started my journey into being a relative foster care placement provider.
Well, and that's something we see so much, especially as, I've worked in our EPS, our emergency placement services homes, and we see that all too often as we see kiddos taken out of the regions that they've lived in and had familiarity with and placed in such unknown places. And it sounds like you were really just motivated to provide that support so that those kids can be in, your siblings really, in the environment that they grew up in, where they have friends, where they went to school, all these things we see so far too often as these kiddos taken out of places where they feel familiar and, shipped all the way from Vancouver all the way up to Tacoma, which is, like a 3-hour trip, into this random unknown city. We're going from a small town like Kelso up into Tacoma, which is would be a crazy transition. I can't even imagine. It's so, that's what, JFC wants to do is find places, within communities to serve because, like you said, it sounds like it's super vital is meeting kids in their communities.
It is, and I appreciate that because the need was so important to us that once our family had come together, having been in San Diego and the situation that we were put in where we needed to be in foster care and we had went to several different ones, and me being the oldest, I was always separated. And then my siblings, the two girls had stayed together. I had another brother who was out of the city with his dad, and then another brother who was brought up to Washington with my mom because we'd always traveled back and forth. We had family here. And so having been in 3 foster homes in San Diego, the question got asked, do you have any family members that could potentially take you? And I remembered my grandmother who lived here and they contacted her and she said, of course. And she took us. And so she had this connection, her along with her brother, this obligation to keep the family together. And that's what they did. And my great uncle is the reason, the sole reason why we never got sent back to California. He went with Jesse Weinberry, who was working in the office at Olympia at one point in time when he was alive, and they petitioned to keep us here. And so we were allowed to stay here, but we were still wards of the state of California. And, that was really historic for us at the time. And so there was this obligation to keep us together. And I wanted to do everything that I possibly could, even at the young age of 18.
That's so awesome and just inspiring to me as someone who's a young, I'm a young adult, and, I have a friend who took on fostering at a young age, and it makes it seem possible. And, and one thing I would ask is, what would you say to those people who are young, in their early to mid 20s thinking, I don't even know if I could support a foster care or even a teen, someone close to your age, might even be an option. And I think it's very doable. Someone who works with these teens and has passion with them, I say, I could totally take them in. I want to hold them all and take them in. So what would you want to say to those people, kind of questioning on that fence of where do I want to be engaged in foster care?
Yeah. The one thing that I would say, and I think the title of this series, Speaking with a Village, just lends its ear right to that it is a whole village. It's not you alone. And so there are resources that are available. If you have the love and the compassion inside of your heart, care for someone else. Just point blank, to care for another person, a soul that's in need, a child that needs help, someone that needs to be rescued, even with respite care, a parent who might just need a break, right? And you have that love in your heart, you have the opportunity, you have the space in your home. Maybe you want to be a parent and you just want to kind of try it out, right? It's right, that you have the opportunity. There's so many resources available. And what a child just needs is they need that loving, they need that supportive person who's willing to see them as important and willing to take them into their own home and say, I will love you just like you're mine, regardless of the circumstances and situations, that I'm here to help you, that now I'm an extended part of your village. And it's always a place or a connection that you may come back to. But if nothing else, it's a seed that you will plant in somebody's life. And when it blooms and blossoms, you can pat yourself on the back because you had an opportunity to pour into somebody in the most vital, in the most important, in the most probably insignificant time of feeling in their life, that somebody stepped in and said, you're valuable, that you are important, that I believe enough for you, even when you can't believe for yourself right now. And I want to do something to help you.
Wow. That's just one more I can't even say that, any better. Whoa. Sherry, what are you doing? We need you as our spokesperson here. Because it's just, already a part of it. Because, and that's ultimately our goal. We want to be this supportive village, and one of our main, mantras we live by is we are a village for children in need. Because in reality, that's what it takes to raise a child. I know you're a teacher too, and you're a part of that village that is you're raising someone else's child, and you're part of that village. And ultimately, we want to look for any role anyone can play. For you now, you're supporting our village by reaching out to the people watching the stream right now, and you're showing that you're willing to be that role. So. To anyone watching, that's what we want. We want to find your role in our village, in reality, and because that's the most important thing, is just using the love you have, and sharing it with your kid, with a kiddo, because they're ultimately the future. That's who's going to shape us when we're old and feeding us and changing us when we're in the nursing homes. So we want to build them up.
We need to treat them right so they treat us right.
And and so that they could be successful and love and live in stability and safety ultimately. So what was maybe one of the highlights from your time? Maybe if it was kind of a silly story or a fun story from fostering with your family.
Well, I think for me, because I had the opportunity to foster my siblings, my two sisters, especially at the same time, I think about how we were raised just as a family unit. My grandmother had all 5 of my siblings at one point in time. and my aunt's 3 siblings. So we were raised in the household with our 3 cousins. And my grandmother had her 8 grandchildren at one point in time. So for Christmases and birthdays, everything was always the same. So like if one person got a pair of pants, everybody got a pair of pants. So everything was always equally spread across, because believe it or not, children believe in equality. They want everything to be equal, right? Because it needs to be fair. That's their favorite word. That's not fair. She has one more than I do. Your piece can be bigger, but you still have 2 pieces and the other person just has one. And so I think about the times going out Christmas shopping for my sisters, wanting just to give them that stability and that place of home, regardless of the fact that they lived with their sister. When I go Christmas shopping, if one sister got a bedspread, the other sister got a bedspread. It was the exact same one too, so that there was no needing to, I like this one better. But it was always the same thing. If you got a blow dryer, you got a blow dryer. If you got 2 pairs of pants, you got 2 pairs of pants, and things of the such like that. And for me, it was that opportunity just to be able to do it, but to that sense of, as how would I feel as a child? I want the same thing that somebody else has, and I don't want to stand apart. I don't want it to be noticeable that I don't live at home. I think about my own self in foster care. When my last spent in foster care, I lived with a wonderful family, and me and the family, the children, we're still connected to this day. And it's been well over almost 30 years. And it was a biracial family. And I remember being in a pageant at school, and they came to the school, and children looked at me and they go, "I didn't know you were half white." And I'm like, "I'm not. I'm not." And they go, "Well, what? You called her mom?" And I said, "She is my mom." And then I explained that I was in foster care. And to hear people go, "I never knew that you were in foster care." And my response was, "You shouldn't know." And that's the important thing about loving, that you shouldn't know that I'm in foster care, because I'm being loved the exact same way a parent loves a child, regardless of where they come from. And so I love the opportunity to be able to do that for my own siblings. I just love them. I just love them.
That's so great. And I love that what you said there is that, she is my mom, and
Yeah.
in reality, blood is blood, and it's really about what you do and how you care for the
Right.
kids in your life and the people in your life that really determine what they are to you. To you, that was mom. To everyone else, that might not look right, but
Yeah.
tough. She's showing you love. She's still being there for you. I think that's the biggest and most important thing. And I think that is kind of, unfortunately, one of those hard myths to dispel is that, when someone's in foster care, that they don't call someone mom, or dad, or, and that means that they lost, their mom or dad. Either way, that doesn't mean that necessarily at all. That just means that they have an adult that cares for them. They have an adult willing to show that safety and stability for them, without it being, just for the sake of love.
For the sake of love.
That's really all it is.
Yes.
Well, so are there, besides that, that's a kind of a myth that, I've heard here and there about foster care. Are there any other, untrue myths you hear, perpetuated amongst those, not so familiar with foster care, that you'd want to address?
Yeah, I would say, and especially because it represents me so much, is that just because a child is in foster care doesn't mean that they're bad or uncontrollable. It wasn't my fault that I got put in foster care. I can probably say that any child that's in foster care, it's not their fault. They are not parents. They are not the responsible party in their home. And so unfortunately, unfortunate things happen, and we need foster care system. And so I appreciate organizations like JMC and other people who are out there doing this type of work, but it's not the child's fault. It doesn't mean that the child is bad. I think about myself. I didn't get in trouble in school. I didn't get in trouble in school. I didn't get in trouble with the law. I've never been in trouble with the law, by the way, right? I didn't have—
knock on wood here.
Right? I've never had those issues or those kind of concerns. I was put in an unfortunate circumstance because of the ailments that my mom had, right? And it caused us to be left alone and abandoned when we were minors. But thank God for my grandmother and other people who had open hearts and homes that were willing to do that. So that myth that a child is bad, you're going to see probably a response from any person who's felt abandoned, who's felt neglected, who's been left alone. If we do it to an adult, there's going to be a feeling and emotion. But when you're talking about a 12 or 13-year-old, and I like to hone in on teenagers because a lot of people don't want to foster teenagers because they have these attitudes, they say, or, they're hard to do that. But anything that happens to anybody, there's going to be a response, but that doesn't mean that the child is bad or that they're unlovable or that they're unsavable. What they need is they need a nurturing home. They need an environment. They need an opportunity to be loved and know how to love. Right. And so that one myth that, especially teenagers, that they're bad, they're hard, I don't want them. And then I think about the other thing when I came up in foster care, that there were just some things I didn't know. I didn't know as a 13, 14, 15, even when I got 25, there were things that I did not know because I was never taught. No one ever sat down and parented me from a young age. And I can remember as early as 7 being left along with my younger siblings to have to make sure they got to school on time, to make sure we ate. And nobody knew that we were told, don't let anybody know that you're home by yourself. So nobody ever told me about taking care of the house, about cleaning up, about, just some things I think about hearing people talk about, these children don't have personal hygiene. Well, because no one's ever taught them. And so we have to get outside of the idea that you're 13 or you're 8, you should know how to do this. I think about myself working with colleagues that are adults. You should know how. Well, if no one's ever taught you, then there's things that you just will never know. So I think those are the big 2 things that, teenagers especially are hard to foster, and that children should know certain things.
Yeah, I put what Aaron, our awesome case manager here, comment on there is there's no bad kids. There's only kids put in bad situations.
Right.
Because in reality is true is that, all these kids, they can't control what situation they're being put in. They can't control what's going on in their life more. And then I really love that too, is that really it's not been taught. And that just means that these aren't kids that have issues. These are kids that have opportunity.
Yes.
In reality is that someone who's 16, you still have 104 weeks before they age out of foster care, 104 weeks in foster care until you have that opportunity to build them up, to build their confidence, their skills, and the things that they might have been missing in such an easy, loving, and compassionate way.
Yeah. And Joshua, I love that you said that, you talked about a 16-year-old and how much more time that they had. And I think a lot of things that we forget, there was a lot of responsibility that was put on me as a 14-year-old, as a 13-year-old, how to run the house, how to make sure the dishes were done, how to make sure the bills were paid, how to make sure everybody had food, where to go to get resources. But I wasn't an adult. These are children we're talking about. They're not many adults. And a lot of times they come from situations where they've had to be many adults. I think about myself. I teach 13 and 14-year-olds in the public school system. A lot of them are having to be many adults, but they're not. They're 13. They're not, their brains aren't even at the point where they can even think about things that adults have to, the cause and effect ramifications of things that we happen. That doesn't happen until like they're 25, right? And amygdala isn't formed all the way until they're 25.
The prefrontal cortex there,
right,
decision making.
We study that so much. And so when we're talking about a 13 and 14-year-old, why they did that? Because they're not adults. The responsibility doesn't lie on them. When you talk about a 5-year-old, why are you always angry and why are you always crying? Because I'm a child, and we like to treat, unfortunately, children like little adults, but they're not. They're just children.
And in reality, I see so many times in, teens coming into our emergency placement houses that have, we call it being adulterized.
Yes.
And that's what it is you're being, propelled into these adult situations and having to think about just survival at that point. It's the base instinct of survival. And that's what they're really doing. And when they have some of these tough behaviors that they come in with, it's because they develop those behaviors in order to survive, in order to get what they need. Yes. Because an adult wasn't there to provide it for them. Right. In reality. And because that's what they need. That's what all kids deserve, is they deserve a safe, stable, and reliable adult that's there and will stick to what they say they are to provide, safety and stability.
That's good.
And ultimately, Yeah, and that's an unfortunate side effect of
It is.
foster care is that
It is.
these kiddos lose out on these pro-social
Yeah.
and just honest opportunities. That's what any other kid would have.
Yeah.
And that's what breaks my heart is people who've never been swimming before in their life because
Right.
never been to a pool, and I'm like, man, I love going down to or even down to a lake or down to
Yes.
anything. It's like that's something I love to do, and
Yeah.
that's opportunity and
It is.
reality, and that's not an issue to get over. That's an
Right.
opportunity to seize
Right.
as a foster parent.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because of my idea of what normal was always based off of my experiences. And I remember as an adult, after I had fostered my siblings and they had been either had turned 18 and they're all very successful now to this day, and they've got their own places, their own homes, they're married, they have their own children, they're doing great. Having a conversation with one of my sisters in my village, and we talked. It seemed like for about 6 hours at the table, going around in circles. She said, "Sherry, you're a child who was not normal," and I'm like, "Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was." But it's all that I knew, and so to me, that was normal. But I didn't know, like you said, about those other experiences, those other opportunities, and so just being in the to provide this a person that hasn't been to the mall, that doesn't know that Puyallup has a downtown, right? To realize just the simple things that we take for granted, those things because of they're restricted to the normal that they know. And it's not that theirs is right and yours is wrong, that there is a better way. And right. And so that can just be better. So just let me give you this opportunity or have this opportunity, and we can do that. We can do that by fostering, by being an advocate, by being a support. At the top of the session, you talked about that once a foster parent, always a foster parent. I remember being in the hallway of my building, and I had a dress on, and there was a student in the hallway moping, sitting on the side, had removed themselves from the classroom. And I just got on the ground and I just started talking. And I just started talking, and I just listened and I listened, and I just started speaking, and she listened, and she turned and looked at me and said, "I never thought about it like that." And I just really told her, I said, I know it's hard, but your mom is doing the best that she knows how. And it opened up her eyes so much, and it was healing for her. But that came from a place that was healing for me as an adult, where I had to understand one day, and it was probably only about 3 years ago, that I just started crying one day, and it was really the Lord. And he said to me, he said, "Your mom did the best that she knew how." And so it just lifted a whole bunch of things off me. And so every child that I get the opportunity to pour into for whatever reason is that you're doing the best that you know how. And so those opportunities are great, right? Where we can teach children, where we can teach children new things and show them new opportunities and experiences, because it adds to their toolbox of resources of what to do. And they don't always have to pull and rely on their sense of normal, because now they can do something better than what they've done before, because they've had an experience, because someone opened up their home and loved them and loved on them and let them know that they were valuable and important, that they were worth it.
That's, and I love that you brought in an example that doesn't, necessarily look like being a parent,
Yeah.
because that's really what we want to do here at JMC2 is provide opportunity for everyone to share their passion with kids, to share to show a kid like, hey, this is something you can do. Even, we have someone who's coming to our girls' house to do Pilates with the girls because that's something she wanted to share with kiddos. We have some staffs who do activities like sewing. That's something that they love to do as a passion of theirs, but it's going to really translate to something that's valuable later in life. And just sharing that little bit is really what we are asking from everyone in our community, is that just share that little bit, see where it goes, and that little bit might mean the whole world to somebody. Our amazing community outreach manager, Donovan, he does our info nights. He always says, you might not change, one person might not change the world, but you might change the world for one person.
Right.
And so, and you can be that. And being a foster parent really looks like that, even if it's just for a few nights showing, your cool baseball card collection to
Yeah.
the kid that's just coming in for respite care.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yep.
that really motivated me. That's awesome. There's this really amazing skateboarder. Her name's Lacey Baker, and she was a
Uh-huh.
foster kiddo.
Oh, wow.
And she got her first skateboard because she saw one of her foster siblings
Yeah.
skateboarding, and she said that looks fun. So a foster parent got it for her. And eventually, she was reunified and with her family, which is our ultimate goal here.
Right. Yeah.
But she was given that opportunity because someone else was willing to be there and care for her when her family couldn't ultimately be there and care, and what they were doing just wasn't enough. And eventually it was, but she was given, her family was given that time by someone who was willing to just share a little bit of time, and a little bit of compassion and caring.
And now it's manifested into something probably bigger than they would have ever believed. In their eyes, they're like, it's just a skateboard. But to that child, it was so much more. And now she's done so many great things with it. That's such an amazing, I love that example.
It's good. And really, there's so many awesome things I want to say to, all the foster parents. We appreciate them so much. So I want to ask you, if there was one thing that you could say to foster parents, all around the world, people who are fostering, whether it be, like I said, once a foster parent, always foster parent. So if they were foster parents, whatever, what's one thing you would want to tell them?
The first and foremost thing I want to tell them from the bottom of my heart, oh my gosh, don't cry, Sherry. I would really want to tell them is thank you. Thank you for taking the opportunity to open your heart and open your home to somebody, to a human, to a soul who is in need, who at their last moments of desperation thought maybe that it was over, that they didn't have a way out, that nobody loved them, that the expectation that they had looked for in their own parent, it didn't exist. And because their own parent could not give it to them, they didn't know and they didn't recognize in the moment that somebody else would be willing to step up and love them the way that they deserved and needed to be loved. And it didn't matter if it didn't come from their own mother, their own father, or their own family members. So thank you, thank you, thank you from me and every foster child out there who's ever been out there, who will ever be out there. It takes a great person who's willing to do something like that, but you don't have to be magical. You don't need to, be rich. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to have all of the resources in the world. You just have to be willing. And so I appreciate the willingness for that. I would also say, keep it up, right? I know sometimes it gets hard. Sometimes we might get attached to children that get reunified, but that is the goal. Sometimes we're just an intermediary and we want to provide a safe, a loving, comfortable space for children to be while their parents heal, while their parents mature, whatever it is. And, to provide that opportunity, that outlet and the resources for the child. And so we can get attached and our heartstrings could go towards this child and then they get moved and we feel this kind of void in our life. But remember the reason and the purpose. We talk about in education, remember your why. So what is the why that you are doing this for? And I would believe it's to be a help because you love children, because you want children in safe spaces. You don't want to watch the news and hear things happening to children. You don't want to see children on the streets in positions that they should never be in. And so remember your why. And then finally, I would say for those that have had the opportunities to long-term care for children and have been asked the question if they want to adopt these children, I would say, if nothing else, get a yes in the front of your lip even now and on your mind, because you have become the stability of that child. You have become their rock. You have become what they know and expect a parent to do. Children, it's amazing that we have expectations that we put on people, that we don't communicate with people and then we get disappointed when they don't deliver for us. But I think a parent's expectation goes without saying. And so you have been that for that child, regardless the age, regardless the heartache that they may have put you through. You opened your home and your heart to love that child. And now that you have the opportunity to be there for real, forever parent, why not just take it and let them know that they are worth it? They are valuable, that they are important, and you love them just like you had them yourself.
And I think that's a very powerful thing to say. I mean, all of it was just, just hit you right in the feels, and you kept it together great. I mean, honestly, I almost cried over here as that. But and really like that, I think that can be a really powerful statement. Is just
Yeah.
showing how much you care. Is having, like you said, that yes on the tip of your lips, because
Yes.
that's going to say to them, I want to care for you. I'm forever going to be attached to you, and forever going to be that supportive other in your life. Adults, what doesn't have, even if they don't call them mom or dad,
Right.
being a supportive adult is someone who sticks with you. We all have those people within our village that stuck with us forever. So I think that is so great, and I'm so glad that we have foster parents that do that for our foster kiddos that are there forever.
Yes. Yeah. I know, I'm trying to keep it together.
You're doing fabulous, and it's just so great to learn more about the journey that you've taken and the support you still give to kiddos, because being teachers were some of the most supportive people in my life too. And I just want to say thank you as well, because last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, so we appreciate our educators. You are very vital, and you help us grow as a society. So I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for being a foster parent, especially to siblings, and your own too. Like that's never easy, but it's vital. We actually have 3,850 sibling groups in this, just in the state of Washington, currently in foster care.
Yeah.
So that's a lot, and only about a third of them, or sorry, so 2/3 of them are placed with at least one other sibling. So they get at least one, but that still means that there's a third of them not placed with any siblings, and then some of that 2/3 aren't placed with their full group of siblings. So you took on multiple siblings and really took on that challenge. But why do you think that challenge was worth it? Why do you think it was so vital to keep your siblings together? And what would you say to those who are considering fostering but might only have a numbers restriction? Might only have, and when they see those sibling groups, they're like, ugh. What would you say to them?
The one thing that I would say is the reason, the way it's so vital is because, if I'm being, let me just tell the story. I remember being taken out of my mother's house in the middle of the night by CPS. And all we got was about 5 minutes and a 30-gallon garbage bag to put our belongings in. In the middle of the night, the electricity was off. Couldn't find my toothbrush. Grabbed whatever I could in the middle of the night. And to be honest, we didn't have a lot of stuff. So we got taken and we got put into respite care, and we got put into a home. And so you walk into a stranger's home in the middle of the night and you hardly have anything. Me being the oldest, I was separated from my siblings because I was a teenager, and it was hard to place teenagers. And so my siblings who were younger than me, the girls, they got put together. And so I'm grateful that they were able to be put together because they had a sense of normalcy. So when your normalcy is being taken from you, whether it's, no matter how hard it is, no matter how put together, that's probably not the right word, that it was your normal, and that's what they knew. And then to be ripped out of that in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, taken from school, whatever, and now you're in a place alone and you don't know anybody, how much more important would it be, and secure and comforting, to know that you have your brother or sister there. The two of you all can lean on one another. The two of you all can love and support each other. You can have somebody that you can ask questions to and don't have to feel ashamed to, that you all can cry with one another and they would understand because they just came out of the same situation that you did. And I know that story probably wasn't the best and most happiest story, but it's real and it's a true story about the feelings and emotions that people go through and they experience. And I've been there. And so, imagining not allowing the siblings to be together would be even more traumatic in the middle of a situation. And so I would say to those that just have a numbers restriction, if you have a numbers restriction, stick to your numbers restriction, right? And so if that's what you have, we love you. It's okay. It's okay. If you're only capable of one, that's okay. What you want the child to know is that they're worth it. And I want foster parents to know is that you're capable of doing it. So whatever you set your heart and mind to, do that, because you're going to do that with integrity, you're going to do it consistency, and you're going to do it with fidelity. And so if you have a numbers restriction, have a numbers restriction. If there's room in your heart when that phone call comes and you've got the brother and they say, but they have a sister and they're in another place, would you be willing to take them? Consider yourself in your situation, that if you found out you had a brother or if you had a sister, and how much you would want to connect with them, to get to know them, to see how similar you are, to see what you all have in common. And when you desire for your own, imagine how it would feel for this child that you're now proving that they're worth it too. And remember that you're capable of being able to care for both of them and show the two of them at the same time, or the three, or maybe even the four. And for us, it was five. So the five of them, that they are worth it and that you are capable of doing
I love that you said that were saying, hey, stick true to what you can do
that.
and what
Yeah,
you feel capable of, because ultimately that's what we want. We want people who
absolutely.
feel confident in what they do and feel
Yeah.
capable. And, when it's that, I don't know, that's
Yeah.
where we want to jump in and say, yes, you can. In
Correct.
reality, when you're for sure about it, well, we
Right.
want, respect that. We want to work with you at JMC, and we want to just bring out your best and
Right.
what you can do to serve. But when it's well, maybe, well,
Yeah.
we want to be the supportive other to say, well, I think you can do it. We have
Yeah.
these resources. We have,
Yeah.
whether it be our case aid work, we can just have, for an afternoon, one of our, our case aid work to just come out and hang out with your kiddos and take them for the day. There's amazing organizations that care for our kiddos when we can, when we have some time. I grew up in the Boys and Girls Clubs. I think they're amazing. They're a great resource. They support us, the YMCA, stuff like that. Like, there's really a lot of resources, and we're out in these communities looking for them for our foster parents. We want to provide, when they're on the cusp of saying yes, we want to give those extra 2 bumps to say, oh yeah, we got this.
And at the end of the day, we want our children that are in foster care and our foster care parents to have great experiences, right? So we don't want them walking away with hung down heads, and we don't want you walking away with hung down heads either. It's interesting, Joshua. I appreciate that you brought that up, because something else I didn't tell you is that I also cared for my nephews at one point of time. So one of my sister's children, a total of 4 boys, and at one point in time it was just one, and then there was a set of 3, not a set, there were 3 boys. Different ages, but they had went into the system. And so they were together at one point in time. And then, just like me, the oldest one had got placed on his own, and the 2 were together. Well, an issue had arose, and the 2 younger ones had to immediately be removed from the home. And they called me and asked me would I take them. And of course I said yes. And the request was not to remove the other sibling from his home, because he was stable. He was doing good. There were no issues and no concerns. Prior to that, however, my sister and brother, who both live here, we all rallied together. We would get them on the weekends. We would spend time with them. We were supporting my sister. And so we were villaging them, although they were out of their home with their mother. And so when the 2 came to stay with me, the older brother was always with us. We went together. We did things together. We visited together. And so he was already in a permanent, stable place. And so there was no need to uproot him, and those younger 2 needing to be together. It came a point of time where we needed to make a permanent place for them to go. And my siblings, right, 2 of which I had fostered, and another one who lived out of the state, him and his wife, we all got together and we talked about it. And my brother, who did not grow up with his nephews because he was in the Navy, him and his wife decided that they would take these 3 children. When he moved back to California, they went to California and lived on Camp Pendleton with them. Different experience than they ever had here. Then he moved to Texas and retired. And so they've grown up. Two of them are now over 18. They're on their own. They're doing great. And then the youngest one is at home in the family. He knows that it's his uncle, but he calls him dad. His cousin is his sister. And we just now have this extended family and this village of people who love us and support those children. But it was because of the heart and the compassion. For me, it was for my siblings. But at the end of the day, it was because I knew that they were worth it.
Kids are worth it.
They are.
Kids are worth the effort. Kids are worth the times that you're going to be up later than you wanted to be, and they won't go to bed. And we have those experiences too. And that's what our awesome director Trelane is driven out to our boys' house at 1 a.m. because she was wanting to be there because they're worth it. That all those kiddos are worth the time and effort because they have opportunity in their future. And they have nothing but bright opportunity and potential. So
that's true.
That's a great story, and I just really appreciate you spending your time and sharing your stories, because I think that I hear all these things perpetuated within just our community of workers, within our EPS houses, within all of foster care, and I hope that someone who's listening identifies that, hey, I can do it. I can show this love. I can open my heart, and love is love is love, and kids deserve and need that.
And it's going to make the foster parent better. And as you were talking, I was sitting, and it doesn't have to be forever. You might know a family who's in need. I had a family, my last foster family that I lived with, they got licensed to take me and my sister when I was 17 years old. And I had a sister that was a couple of years younger than me. They got licensed before I fostered her. They got licensed to take us in their home. And we were the only children they had. But we had a connection with them through my mom and the husband of the family. And when we got put into a situation where we were out of my mom's home, I went to them for support because they knew one another, and they in turn got licensed and they took care of us. We transitioned out of there, and they never got anybody else. So it doesn't have to be forever, but we have a relationship now that, every time she talks about her children, I'm in the post. And my sister, we're all in the post. My nieces are her grandchildren. We're all in the post because we have become an extended village of family.
And that's all our hope can be, is that we find people who are willing to be a village of support for our kiddos. Yeah. Because that is ultimately, what we do. And I said it before, we'll say it again, and you'll probably hear from JMC a few times now, but we are a village for children in need, because that's what it takes. And we all know that children are not easy. They're children. They're gonna test you. They're gonna be a little difficult, but that's children. As long as you have, you see them as an opportunity, you see them as a chance for growth within yourself and within the world. I think that is more than enough. The price of admission. That will serve our community. That will serve them for the rest of their life.
Correct. And I love what you said. And I think I heard a quote, and I'm not going to say it right, so I'm going to put it like this. It's not a challenge. It's just an opportunity, right? It doesn't have to be a challenge. Think about it as an opportunity to better yourself, to hone in your skills, to, pull on the resources that to extend and share love in a different way, to grow up and mature. We are all challenging at times. I'm sure my sisters would say I'm challenging. They might not be correct, but, they'll probably say that I'm challenging. And so there's all things that we can work on and develop our skills and, our self-efficacy and things. And so don't look at it as a challenge. Look at it as an opportunity to help yourself, and at the same time, better yourself. Help someone else and then better yourself.
Well, Sherry, that's all I got for you this evening. I appreciate you joining us and sharing with us your story, with encouraging those to take hold of this opportunity, to be a foster parent, to be a supportive member of our village. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, where we'll hopefully see you around the JMC Village. We'll be around and we'll be in touch. So I appreciate you joining us and sharing your time this evening and your story, and just happy Foster Awareness Appreciation Month. Hope you have a good rest of your evening.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Well, that was Miss Sherry. We want to thank her. And I also just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening to show your support and love for foster children. That ultimately is what this is for. So thank you for being a part of Speaking with the Village. I'll be back with you the next third Wednesday of the month. So look forward to that. We got Miss Trelane's Table Talk coming on Friday. So stay tuned to JMC's happening on our Facebook page. Thank you everyone who joined us tonight. Have a good rest of your day. Hope you join our village.